Hello, and welcome to a special edition of The Sober Truth. My name is JT Hawker, and of course, I'm still your host. So, last week I received a request from somebody who has been listening to the podcast. The request was that maybe I explain a little bit more about what a rehab is, um, what the program is, what AA is. I guess I just didn't. It didn't dawn on me that people out there might be listening that are interested in it or reaching out for help, or may know somebody who needs help, may not know some of this terminology we use. They may not know what a rehab facility is like, and so I appreciate that feedback. And wow, I mean, it really made me realize that, yeah, I may need to do an episode just on that, so that anytime in the future when I speak about rehab facilities, or the program, I can refer people back to this episode, um, for clarity on it if they don't understand it. So thank you to the individual who reached out and asked me to do this. I am more than happy to. Uh, and so I'm just going to get started. So I'm just going to give you kind of the rundown of my personal experience. And this can vary from person to person, because everybody has their different addictions. Everybody has their different way of coping with treatment. So this is just my personal opinion, my personal story. So don't take this as like the general um, populace, or just don't take this as like everybody has this experience and everybody gets the same thing out of it. So my first experience with a rehab was a state-run facility. I kind of was put in there. Okay, no, not kind of. I was put in there by, I don't know. I think they call it 5150 or whatever. I went into the hospital with an overdose. I think there might have been some suicidal tendencies going on. I don't really remember. It's all kind of a blur. This was probably back in 2006, very, very early on in my when my disease really started to affect my life. Um, so yeah, only stayed there 3 days. It was, to me, it was horrible. It was just a really bad experience. There were just a lot of people there that were, also put in there for the same reason. They didn't want to be there. There was a guy there that was crazy. I think he was off the streets. He tried. I think it was the second night I was there. He tried to pee on me in the middle of the night. When I woke up, he was standing there getting ready to go. So that extremely freaked me out. Needless to say, I I called my husband the very next day and was like, "Get me out of here now!" Like, my hold was over, so I think it was 72 hour. Um, and yeah, I mean, there was a few classes they did, uh, but there was no program. There was no. I don't remember there being any like AA meetings or NA meetings. It was all just like social skills classes, I guess, or life skills classes. I don't know why I said social skills, but whatever. It was just not a good experience at all. And of course, my husband did come and pick me up. Um, I ended up back there again. I think about 2 years later. Same circumstance. I had been on and off at that point. I was on and off with my drug using. It was mostly opiates, because I was being given a lot of oxycodone for my back pain, and wasn't getting a diagnosis, just getting shoved pills in me. That doesn't matter. That's a different story. Um, but yeah, I didn't. That was my first experience with it. So in my mind, that was what rehab was. That's the only option there was, and so I was never going back after that. Second time, I had really bad experience. Same kind of things were going on. It totally put there not wanting to go, but I also didn't want to. Um, I just needed to get better. I was withdrawing and all that, so really didn't have much of a choice. So yeah, after that, like, it was, man. So 10 years later, no, not quite 10. So about 8 years later, um, in 2016 was my next rehab facility, and so between that time, between that 8 years, you know, I maintained pretty well. I wasn't using the hard stuff anymore. I wasn't using meth anymore. I wasn't using, meth when I ran out of oxy, because really that was the only other option I had. I'd get so sick, and I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know, and somebody turned me on to meth when I was coming down. This person, I was actually referred to this person because she was, supposedly in the Narcotics Anonymous program, and she would take me to meetings. She would help me like get through this so that I didn't have to rely on my pills anymore. I know it's kind of a long story, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Fuck it. Um, so yeah, I went to her for help actually, and um, yeah, she was just like, "Oh yeah, I know it can make you feel better. Like I know you're really sick right now. Do you have any money?" And of course I did. And she said, "We anyway." She got the stuff, and I did some, and it was like, oh, thank goodness for that, because I feel a lot better. But yeah, it was not a good thing. But I hadn't been using it for. I mean, trust me, it was a bad couple years on and off with meth. But I'll save that for another story, another time, whatever. I can't fucking talk today, but I'm not gonna keep editing. So where was I? So 20, yeah. So I hadn't been using meth. I moved to Pocatello, away from like where I knew to get that stuff. I was working a really good job. Still struggling with pain pills, of course, because I had a surgery, and so the pain pills came back into play, very very heavily in 2012. After a major back surgery, I had a full disc replacement, because they finally figured out what was wrong with my back. Uh, Go figure. But yeah, they heavily medicated me with oxys and uh, gabapentin, and then I was introduced to Xanax and benzoids. So I had a whole bunch of things going on. And I was drinking. Not a lot, but I was drinking with the medications, which is not good. Anyways, 2016 rolls around. I go to visit my son in Washington and my granddaughter. And, I'm with my husband and my two other kids. I think they both came. I can't remember. Or one of them was living up there. But anyway, we had a visit, and I drank a lot when I was there. Not like in front of the kids or anything, but I'd go out to my car and chug a little bit of, what was my poison? I can't remember. It was a hard alcohol, but anyways, we had the visit. It was 4 or 5 days. I can't remember, but after I got home, my son, he sent me a picture of, I think, some pills that I had dropped on the floor, and they were really like the oxys that could. It's not good. Anyways, it put my granddaughter's life in danger because she very easily could have. She was a toddler, and she could have very easily picked those up and put her man, I just get choked up when I think about this because it was hard to get that message from my son that, look, you can't come here unless you've got your shit together. Basically, it wasn't. He was very, very. My son was very not mean about it. But he was stern with his words because he had a family to protect, and I totally get that. Before that, I'd never fucking really even ever fucking gave a shit about what I was doing to myself. I was like, I'm only harming myself, so who the fuck cares? It never dawned on me that I was actually putting other people's lives in danger, or my own granddaughter's life in danger. I think about what would have happened if she would have taken those, and man, it just killed me to think that I could have taken away something that precious from my son, and I broke down and really, really broke down, and I was to the point of suicidal because I just couldn't stop. I didn't know a way. I did not know a way to stop taking the pills. Had too strong of a hold on me, and my drinking had gotten really not out of control, but I was drinking way more than a normal person would drink. Um, so it was either check out of this world or find help. So my I asked my husband, I had a breakdown. I literally could not stop crying, and asked him to do some research. I think I asked him that I needed to go to rehab, that I needed to find a good facility somewhere that I could get some help. So we we did some research and we found a really good recovery center here in Boise. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to get in trouble, but anybody who knows me knows where I went. It was great. I mean, I was really afraid to go because I thought I was going to be in there again with a bunch of junkies, and I don't like using that word now, but that's what I had thought in my mind at the time, and I thought maybe I was going to get beat up. Maybe people were going to steal my stuff. Like, you know, I just was scared. It was one of the scariest things I ever had to do, but I was willing to do anything to make that up to my son, to show him that I could stop, that I wanted him to trust me again, and I wanted to be able to visit my granddaughter, and I wanted to do all those things. And, you know, thank God he did. Thank God my son did, what he did, because that was my first step into, a long journey, but a journey into recovery. And I can't be more, I don't know, more grateful to him that he said the things he said to me, but he said them not in a way that just made me really go over the edge. He was just, anyway. So when I get there, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, it wasn't a really big facility, but um, it was a women's and men's facility. The men were on one side, the women on the other. We had some really good groups. I learned a lot about addiction and the disease of it, and I couldn't, I was really surprised about what I was learning in there, and the science behind it, and which the science behind it would end up coming and bite me in the ass later on. But yeah, I mean, we had pretty good food, and we went to yoga 3 days a week and gym 3 days a week. So I was getting exercise. I was feeling better. I was starting to get my confidence back. It was really, really hard to be away from home, but it was where I knew I needed to be. And I, I was just surprised about it. I mean, it's not what people think. The people that I was in there were people. They were just people just like me. They were mothers and fathers and daughters and sons. They were just people that were, you know, working class. There was musicians, there was engineers in there, and there were, um, and the thing is, all the nursing staff uh, and all of the counselors and everybody who was in that facility to help us, with with maybe the exception of two or three, were all addicts themselves and had been clean for a really long time. So they knew, what we were going through. It gave them more compassion towards us and more empathy, and they were able to connect with us more and teach us more because they had been through it themselves. And I did not expect that at all. I was blown away um, at how that helped. Like looking at somebody going, wow, you used to, struggle with heroin, and now you're working on a doctorates or whatever. It gave me hope that I could do it myself. So that was my first experience with it. I completed the program. They tried to get me to do an intensive outpatient, but I just wanted to go back home. I wanted to go back to my dogs and my husband, and back to work and all of that. So um, that is what most facilities are like. That is from what I've heard from you know the countless other people that I know that have gone to rehab. They're pretty similar in that way. So if you are thinking about going to rehab and you're scared, don't be scared. I mean, it's scary being away from home. It's scary, um, having to meet new people, and it's scary. Just it's just a little scary, but I promise, like, man, the first like within the first, I would say, couple of days, probably because I was, withdrawing and they had me on medication, but I felt comfortable there and I felt welcomed, and the camaraderie between all of us patients that were in there, the bonds we created were amazing. Friends that I still have today, um, from 2016 that were in there that are still clean. Those are the only people I hang out with. So, uh, yeah, I mean, it's. Oh, and one other thing I forgot. They do, that was super important. Probably the most important thing that they did at that facility was take us to AA meetings and NA meetings. That's where I was first introduced to, like, the 12-step program, and that there is a way to continue staying clean by going to meetings, and just learning about, and just hearing other people in meetings share about what they've gone through. I was that I look back now was the most important part. It was at the time when I went through that, I was kind of like, oh, I like some meetings, I don't like some meetings. This is what I don't like about AA. This is what I don't like about NA. I kind of was having that attitude, but at the same time, there were people in there that caught what they were trying to teach in AA and NA then and there. I just wasn't one of those people yet. I continued to go to meetings after I got out of rehab for about 6 months. I got really heavily involved in NA and became the newsletter editor of the region, and like stayed clean for I think 7 or 8 months. But that was my first experience with staying in a 30-day program, and uh, it wasn't my last. I ended up doing two more, and I'll get to that in a minute. But if you're thinking about going to rehab, or if you know of somebody who might have the means to go, that maybe needs the help, that maybe is hesitant, just let them know that it's not that bad. In fact, it's something that can save your life. I know it saved my life. I know it did. If my son had not reached out to me and um, done that, I wouldn't have gone to rehab, and I would probably be dead because it was bad. Like, I was overdosing all the time. I was at the hospital all the time. I was not working. I just was in the most horrible depression ever. I don't think that I would be here today. Maybe. I mean, I don't know, but I doubt it. But that was that experience, and looking back, I did it for all the wrong reasons. If you're thinking about going to rehab, do it for yourself. Do it because you want to do it. Do it because you want to get better. I was trying to do it to regain the trust of my son, to show my husband I could do it, to show my family I could do it, to like just basically show everybody that that knew I was in rehab, went to rehab, that I could. I just wanted to look good. I really didn't. I still really didn't give a shit about myself. So if you're thinking about going, do it for you, and just yeah, you can do it for other people, but you have to do it. You have to put yourself first. And I wish I would have known that then. Um, I mean, I guess I wish. I don't know. I kind of don't want to take back anything because, in my opinion, God put me through what He put me through to get me where I am today. But had I grasped that concept of doing it for me in the beginning, um, I might be a lot further along in my program than I am. I'm still fairly new. I just celebrated 9 months and staying connected. But yeah, do it for you. Uh, and so that's pretty much what the first rehab was like. I did go to the same facility again in May of 2019. Um, after getting heavily back involved into drugs and uh, drinking really, really bad. Like the drinking got way out of control. And I still had access to doctors and pain pills and to benzoids, to Xanax. So it spiraled again. Starting around 2018, it spiraled again. There was about a year long, a little over a year long of just after relapsing. Oh, it's more than that. 18 months. I don't know. It was a while. I relapsed for a while, but it spiraled pretty quick and got pretty bad. And it got to the point where I hated my husband. My husband hated me. My kids had no respect for me. They were adults, but they were living at home at the time, and my son had yelled at me and basically called me a piece of shit. And why are you doing this to us? And I'm not blaming him for saying that at all. Like, I was an asshole. I was a fucking asshole. I was a selfish fucking prick in my disease. Like, it just took me. It took my soul out of me. It took my spirit out of me. So I said hateful things. I said hurtful things. I only cared about me. I only cared about drugs. I only cared about alcohol. I only cared about getting my next fix. And that's what I did 24 hours a day, was do drugs and then plan how I was going to get my next drugs, how I was going to get money for alcohol if I didn't have drugs, what I was going to do when I ran out, who I was going to go to. It was a 24-hour, 7-day a week job. And it was pure fucking hell. Pure hell. I couldn't believe I'd got back in. I couldn't believe that I had gotten back to that state, but worse. I mean, man, yeah, if you can catch rehab the first time, don't ever, like, or if you can get sobriety the first time, just do it the first time, because it just gets worse and worse. And they tell you that, and I didn't believe it until, I experienced it myself. So I went to the same facility and I knew I needed additional help at more than 30 days. So I was really scared, but I was talking to go to a sober living house. And once again, I was very scared. I was in my mind, I was thinking I'm going to be in there with these people that are right off the streets. They have nowhere to go. They have no home. They're going to beat me up. I don't know why I was such a pussy, but I didn't, but I don't think my husband did not want me back home. Like, he didn't, that relapse I had, and literally the 7 days, the 7 days before I actually checked myself into that rehab, was the most horrifying experience I'd ever had. I driven up to Boise to see an old friend and did meth and alcohol and benzoids, and then I went into psychosis for the first time, and it was pure hell. And I'll maybe tell that story a little bit. Um, just put a little fear into somebody who is hesitant about going to rehab. Do it, because you don't want to end up like you don't want to end up going through what I went through. Um, I went into psychosis, and man, I saw demons, and I had demons chasing me, and I called the police on myself, because I drove to the gas station, and I don't know what happened. Like I said, I was in psychosis, but I ran into the gas station and declared to them that had been kidnapped, and I had been spent the last 3 days in the trunk of my car, and I just escaped, and I was sweating, and I believed it. I believed that that had happened to me. Literally, between the time I drove from my friend's house to the gas station, my brain thought that that happened, and I was serious. I was so frightened. My mind, that it was reality to me that that happened. That I had just escaped the trunk of this car after being in there, and I was dehydrated, and I was sweating, and I was sweating, and I was dehydrated, and I didn't have, like, I forgot my wallet, and anyway, they called the cops. Obviously, they're gonna call the cops. I didn't call the cops on myself at that time, but they called the cops. They called the police. And I don't remember what happened. I really don't. Oh, I remember the police looking at the video surveillance after I told them the story of me being kidnapped. Actually kidnapped by a friend. I was like, a different friend from Pocatello, I thought had kidnapped me. Oh my hell. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but you have to find humor in that. I remember telling them that, and I remember them watching the video surveillance from the store. They'd got the surveillance out, and literally I was watching the screen with them, and it was me pulling up to the gas pump and getting out of the car. I didn't get out of the trunk, but my mind, I knew I was messed up. So I didn't get arrested, but I did get sent to the hospital, and then I was put on a 24-hour hold in the hospital. They gave me stuff to come down. I came down. Then the next day, I oh yeah, I couldn't find my car. I went out of the parking lot, and it was still kind of out of it after 24 hours, and couldn't find my car anywhere. I walked around that hospital like for 2 hours looking for my car, and then remembered, oh yeah, the ambulance brought me here. So I called my friend that I'd done meth with, and she said, "Hey, can you come pick me up and take me to the car?" She did. She took me to my car, and I had nowhere to go. I wasn't gonna go. I had come up to Boise to visit my grandma, um, but I didn't. So I didn't want to go back to her house uh, or I didn't want to go to her house because it was still kind of messed up. And so I went back to my friend's house, after I got my car, and I was like, you know what? I want to buy some more meth. And she's like, well, okay, just don't smoke it this time because you smoked it, and I think you smoked too much, and la la la. You went into psychosis. I'm like, I'm not, so I didn't, and I just snorted it. Man, like within an hour, I went back into psychosis, and she had left the house to go visit her boyfriend, and I literally thought that. I mean, I went into full blown psychosis quick, and I thought that there were demons. Actually, not demons. I thought they were people, like actual people in masks, that were trying to break through the window of her house. That were trying to get into the bedroom I was in, because I'd locked myself into it because they were outside my window trying to pry my window open, and then they were at the bedroom door, trying to get in. They were shaking the door, shaking it, and I could see these knives coming through like the corner of the door, jam, trying to open it, like these big butcher knives, and coming in and out. Oh my god. I was so frightened. I'd never been so frightened in my life. So this is when I called the police on myself. I called the police, told them that these people were trying to break in. They were trying to kill me. Um, I didn't know the address, but I told them what street it was on and what my car looked like. So the police came, and I remember I had my phone in my hand, and they knocked on the bedroom door because they had knocked on the they heard me screaming, so they came in the house. they they were not. They pounded on the bedroom door. It scared me so bad. I said, "I've got a gun," and I am surprised that I didn't get shot to death. I'm very lucky I didn't get shot to death because they said, "Put your weapon down. Put your weapon down," and then I realized, oh, it's the police. And I was like, "Oh, I'm the one who called you. I don't really have a gun. It's just my phone." And I went and I unlocked the door and they opened it. Oh, they could, I mean, obviously they could tell I was fucked up, but in my mind, I wasn't fucked up. In my mind, I was just like being a victim of this crazy fucking shit happening, that wasn't happening. So, man, I'm telling a long story, um, for just somebody wanting to know about rehab, but it's important that if anybody's listening that is uh, hesitant about going, to hear this shit, because this is where you're gonna end up. You're gonna end up calling the police on yourself. And they walked me around the yard. They had their flashlights. There was like 5 of them, and they were like, "Nobody's fucking here. Like, what the fuck?" And I was like, "No, they were here. Look, there's footprints all over the yard." And they're like, "Those are our fucking footprints." And I was like, "No, no, they were here." So the police, they probably deal with fucking high ass people all the time, and probably just get. In fact, it was probably the same police that, I'm pretty sure it was the same police that had got called to the store. So they were just like, "Fuck this guy," like, and they didn't arrest me. They just told me, um, to fucking, get help. They were like, "Get help," and just left. I mean, they have better things to do with their time than fucking run to somebody's house that's in psychosis from doing too much meth and alcohol and benzoids. Oh my hell. Anyway, so the I'm just gonna like sum this up really quick. For the next 3 days of me being in psychosis, because I continued to do meth, um, I was chased around town in my car because I left. I left her. She actually kicked me out of her house because before, after the police left, I was still convinced that they were coming after me. So I tore her entire house to pieces looking for a gun. I mean, I threw her clothes all over the place. I moved her bed. Every dresser drawer I opened up and threw clothes out of it looking for a gun. I took everything out from underneath her bed. I did that in every room. I tore apart the front room. I mean, I trashed her house looking for a gun. Thank God I didn't find one. But she came home and obviously freaked the fuck out. She was so pissed off. And I was trying to tell her people were breaking in, and she's like, "No, they're not. You're fucking high. You're in psychosis." And I'm like, "No, there was people. The police came," and she's like, "No, they didn't." But whatever. She says you need to leave, and I didn't blame her. I had nowhere to go. I wasn't going to go back home. I was too scared to drive that far. But anyway, I ended up being chased around town for 3 days. I went to Walmart all fucked up, trying to hand people my wallet, so because I thought they were after me, and I was like, "Just take my wallet, leave me alone." And these people were like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" It was bad. Um, I came down a little bit and went to my grandma's. I was seeing demons there. I freaked my grandma out. In fact, I probably traumatized her. She was on the third story of this retirement home, and um, I had showered and I was screaming in the shower because I thought spiders were crawling out of my arms, and she didn't know what to do with me. And like I was on my knees in her kitchen praying, and it was so fucked up. I was such a mess. But at one point, there was a demon down that on the ground. I was out on the balcony smoking, and he was saying, "Come here, come on, jump, jump." I literally was like, thought that was the best idea right then and there, was to jump. I just wanted it over with. So I started to climb over the balcony, and thank God my grandma saw me and come and pulled me down. My poor grandma. I've said my amends to her, and she's forgiven me. But obviously she called an ambulance, and the ambulance came, and I went to a different hospital, and oh my god, the 24-hour hold, and blah blah blah. I went back to my grandma's. I went into psychosis again, and I told my grandma I needed to leave because I didn't want to freak her out anymore. And I drove myself right to the hospital, a different hospital, so that would have been my third visit in a week. Checked myself in. I was still freaking out, telling them what was going on. They took me in, and I was really freaking out. I was crying so hard, like, because I'd been through so much. Like, anyway, there were bruises all over my body, everywhere. It was bad. And they thought that I'd been, like, into domestic violence. They wanted to know if I was safe at home. They asked me what happened to me, and I looked at my body, and I was like, I don't know. I have no idea what happened. And to this day, I don't know what happened. But I had so many bruises on me, and my body, I ended up being diagnosed with rhabdomyolosis, which I had never heard of, but it's when all of your muscle tissue in your body breaks down and floods your liver and kidneys with blood. And they didn't think I was going to make it. That's how bad a shape I was in. That's how bad this disease gets. And when the doctor told me, she had to be honest with me. She said, I don't know. This is what's going on. She's like, this rhabdomyolosis usually is like when athletes overexert themselves, or, somebody falls and lays in a spot for like 2 days. Like, she didn't understand how I got it. But she didn't know if I was going to make it through it because my body was shutting down. And when she told me that, I was so thankful. I was like, thank God it's over. Thank God I'm finally going to die. Because I can't live like this anymore. I have no purpose on this earth. I have no purpose. I am worthless. Nobody loves me. I'm a piece of shit, and I want to die because I can't stop. And I couldn't. Anyway, by the fourth day in the hospital, it finally looked like I was pulling out of it, to my dismay. And I just broke down crying once I realized that, I was going to live. And I asked for a social worker, and I said, I need to go to rehab. And I ended up back at the same facility. It was the same, except that I did an IOP program afterwards. That's why I was telling you that I knew I needed more this time and go to a sober living house. I know I got sidetracked, but I went to the sober living house. I was pleasantly surprised. It's not what you think. The guys were just like me, just normal people trying to get better. I did the NA thing again, and I really thrived, and la 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 la. Anyway, relapsed a year later and ended up rehab again. But this time went to rehab in Dallas, and then I did another IOP, 2020, down in California, Southern California. Great. The whole thing was great. Sober living, IOP, the Dallas Treatment Center. But here's what my point. My point is, rehab is good. If you have the means for it, rehab is good. But the thing that made the difference this time is that I was willing to give AA a chance. I was willing to give the 12 steps a chance. I was willing to, like, go through the actual fucking program and do the fucking deal and not fuck around anymore. If you don't have the means to go to a 30-day program, a rehab, or an IOP, or a sober living, go to meetings. Because if I had grasped that in the beginning, grasped it, actually Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, whatever, 12-step program, it doesn't matter, is actually the solution. The solution wasn't rehab. Rehab gave me like a kickstart, for sure. And they definitely took us to meetings, and they definitely tried to drive it down our throat. But it was more counseling and therapy and all that other stuff, classes. But if I just grabbed the program in the beginning, I wouldn't have had to go through all that shit. The next relapse in 2020 going into psychosis again. I'm not even gonna tell that story. It just gets fucking worse. End up in hospitals. You end up firing shotguns out your kitchen window and traumatizing your son. Like, he was an adult, but that's still traumatic. Scared the fuck out of him. But yeah, you don't have to go through that shit. You don't have to go through what I went through. If you know somebody who has a meaning to go to rehab, that's a great kickstart. Or if you yourself, I would do it. I would go to a rehab. Do research, find the right one, the one that looks like fits for you. But the therapy and the counseling and the detoxing, that all helps. Go to the meetings with them and listen and get a sponsor and just work the steps. Just say, fuck it, I'll do it. I'm going to give it a shot, because that's what I did. I'm not saying I'm perfect. My life is great. Actually, my life is great right now. In fact, it's fucking incredible. Like, working this program, and I have a career again, and I just got a promotion with a 20% raise, like massive raise. And I didn't even ask for the promotion. It just came to me. They came to me because I'm a new person. I'm a different person. I'm responsible. I'm respected. I work a program. I pray night and day, and I'm grateful for everything I have. It just makes the biggest difference. If I hadn't done the 12-step program, I wouldn't be where I am today. So that's it. I know I went 41 minutes. It's way longer than I wanted it to be, but I had a lot to say about it. So do it. Just do the deal, or help somebody do the deal. And that is my rehab episode. I've got to get ready for work. Thank you for listening to me. I hope this helped someone, and I hope it frightened the fuck out of someone, because I hope it frightens you into sobriety, because you ever want to go through that. Trust me. You don't want to get to that point. And you might think you won't, but you will if you continue. It may not be that story, but it'll be a fucked up story. And if you live through it, I hope you reach out for help. I'm JT Hawker. This is The Sober Truth. Catch you next time.